Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant. Welcome to part 2 in the series I've ponderously titled The Leica SL Review 3 years after launch. Now, if you haven't seen part 1, you may want to stop here and take a look first because this is not a typical camera review. It's very personal and I have clear biases. But with that said, okay, today I'd like to talk to you about the Leica feel, the Leica mystique. That's because, love it or hate it, it's clear that few people buy a Leica simply as a camera, and the Leica SL is not likely to be different. We're going to explore what makes a Leica as camera and talisman, so that as we move forward in the series, we can assess, among other things, how well the SL lives up to that fabled name. But before I do, a quick reminder from our new Department of Friendly Neighborhood Commerce that every time you purchase anything through one of our B&H affiliate links down below, you're automatically entered to win the Luxley Viola on-camera bicolor LED with diffuser. This is an item I first tested with little help from my friends because I needed just that kind of capability, and liked this so much, we decided to give one away. It's an easy way for you to show your support, and it's an easy way for us to show our appreciation of that support from you, our YouTube viewers. We'll announce the winner on May 22nd, but in the meantime, you can check out our review of the Luxley by clicking on the link down below or somewhere up above here. So, right, that Leica feel, that Leica look. What are they? Are they even what really make a Leica? I think we need to start at the beginning with a German microscope manufacturer named Optisches Institut. A guy by the name of Karl Kellner founds the company around a new optical design of his around 1849. It is a period when cameras and optics are the brand new high-tech industry of the era. To put this in context, Zeiss is formed around the same time with the same purpose, high-quality microscopes. On the other hand, at this point, Hasselblad is just a trading company. Eastman Kodak and Cooke Optics won't be formed for decades. There are 3 things about the Institute I think are relevant to our story all these years later. First, their optics are exceptional. Second, it's worth pointing out that when Kellner dies only a few years later, it is his wife who takes over and runs the business for more than a decade. Third, and this is a couple of years later, 1864, a mechanic whose experience consists primarily of making watches in Switzerland joins the company. Let's stop for a moment to bookmark the first things coming out of these facts that I think will be coded into Leica DNA. Innovation, entrepreneurship, superb optics, watch-like literally precision, and progressive management. How progressive? Well, for starters, women in Germany won't win the right to vote until 1918. In the US, it'll take another 2 years beyond that. But back to our story, and the fact that the mechanic, oh, by the way, is Ernst Leitz. Within 5 years, Leitz owns the company and renames it eponymously to, well, yeah, Ernst Leitz. The company grows financially and reputationally, dramatically. But what's even more impressive to me is that while an 8-hour workday will not become law in Germany until 1918, Leitz implements it about 20 years sooner and sets up health insurance for his employees too. Let's pause to bookmark this as part of the Leica DNA. A progressive mindset, beginning with progressive labor policies born, I like to think, of an empathy for and appreciation of fellow human beings. A sense of family, integrity, continuity, humanity. We'll be coming back to this, so hold that thought. Of course, between then and 1918, the First World War is waged, and mechanized death allows a scale of inhumanity never before seen. The toll on Europe is horrific, as it is on Leitz personally and professionally. He dies in 1920. The company's financials, like so many others, in tatters. His son, Ernst Leitz II, succeeds him. And things are about to get much, much worse. But Let's rewind for a moment back to 1913, a year before the war begins, when we meet Leica's new director of research. The young man builds a precision testing device to determine movie film light sensitivity at a time when emulsions are inconsistent. He's an engineer, amateur photographer, filmmaker, and inventor-tinkerer who turns the perforated roll film sideways in this box, a very compact all-metal box, and mates a lens to it so that he can take individual test shots, which, by the way, turn out to be pretty good quality. Now, this young man also suffers from asthma and realizes this device could be the basis for a high-quality camera, much more portable than the tripod-mounted view cameras of the day. Portable enough so that he could actually carry it with him while hiking in the mountains. Remember, at this time, you've got the Kodak Brownie using 120 film on the one hand, a camera made for the most part out of cardboard with a single or a two-element, a doublet, fixed focus lens, and on the other, the just-released revelatory 4x5-inch speed graphic. Limited functionality and small image size from the one, still too much weight, complexity, and fragility on the other. Even though both are quantum leaps over the glass plate studio and field cameras of just a few decades earlier. Now, you know the punchline here, right? This young man is Oscar Barnack, and this device will become the Leica, the lights camera. But not yet. And contrary to popular belief, it will not in any case be the first 35mm camera out there. Turns out a lot of folks have the same idea. The earliest patent I could find for what we now call a full-frame 35mm camera dates back to 1908. But it is in 1913, the year Barnack conceptualizes the Leica, that the first widely available 35mm camera in half-frame format, same as motion pictures, goes on sale. It's called the Tourist Multiple. Let's highlight elements from this part of the story, including many not generally associated with Leica, but I think are really important. First, the Leica is born out of a very specific real problem, the need to travel light. Second, not only is it small and light, it is dramatically more robust and faster to operate, especially when you compare it to the speed graphic, if not the Brownie. Third, it is conceptualized and designed by the person with the problem, an actual image maker who has a clear sense of the solution. Fourth, the solution arrives in the form of a literal twist on existing technologies turning the film sideways. Leica doesn't have to be first, but it is designed, thoughtfully, to be best, at least defined in very particular ways. Fifth, from the very beginning, with its use of perforated cinefilm, the Leica is an agglomeration of still and moving image technologies, a hybrid. Sixth, the first Leica is about optics and handling, not the actual permanent capture of the image, which is left to the makers of the film upon which the camera relies. Seventh, and this isn't something I've mentioned directly, the entire concept of the Leica demands an entirely new post-production ecosystem to support it. The idea with the Leica is not to make contact prints, as has generally been the case to this point, but instead to enlarge the image first, the same way you do for a movie. This requires, again, superb optics, but not just for the capture device, the enlargers and eventually projectors as well. This in turn leads to a kind of stunning recognition for me personally. Eighth, the Leica is a very early example of calculated, compromised image quality. A 35mm negative, no matter how sharp the lens, cannot show as much detail, all else being equal, as a 120 negative, let alone a 4x5-inch negative, in exchange for more prosaic considerations like ease of use, speed, and portability. The hard reality is that most people will not appreciate the difference in IQ between a 4x5-inch contact print and a 4x5-inch enlargement made from a full-frame 35 negative. You know we will come back to this at some point too. There's probably more we can take from this, but let's move on. Wait, one more thing. At this point, the Deutschmark trades at 4 to the dollar. Hold that thought. Back to 1920, 2 years after the war ends, when Ernst Leitz II takes over. He presides over the company in an era of German economic freefall, even as the country enters an extraordinary period of creativity and progressivism known as the Weimar Republic. For me, this is the critical moment in the history of the Leica, a crucial bit of DNA coded into the Leica brand, the thing that pushes Barnack's vision from prototype into production because, well, desperate times call for desperate measures, and this won't be the last time the two are intertwined. This is worth a couple of minutes because I think economics, politics, and photography are profoundly commingled. They certainly are in some of the most celebrated images ever to come out of a Leica. It is also, I hasten to add, a human story rather than a German story per se. I want to stress that. For our story, let's just say that Germany decides to pay for its entry into World War I by borrowing money under the assumption that they'll win it and pay back the loans through the spoils of war, including annexed natural resources and reparations from the losers. But, oops, they lose the war, along with 13% of their land mass. Incredibly onerous reparations are instead imposed upon them. And as the country struggles to make those payments, suffers plummeting income tax driven by unemployment and foreign protective tariffs, creates infrastructure and social programs in an attempt to literally and figuratively dig out from under, and then prints money willy-nilly to pay for all of this, the Deutschmark crashes beyond anything I think the modern mind can comprehend. By 1919, the mark trades at 48 to the dollar, less than 10% of what it was worth when Barnack had to put his camera on hold at the beginning of the war. By 1921, it's 90 DM to the dollar. By mid-22, 320. December 22, 7,400. Germany can't pay reparations at this point, so French and Belgian troops occupy the Ruhr Valley, Germany's industrial heartland, to take reparations directly in the form of real commodities like coal. German workers go on strike, and look, just to cut to the chase, it takes trillions of marks to buy $1. So, by 1924, Ernst Leitz II is pretty well hosed if he says yes or no to Barnack's small travel camera. If he says yes, he runs the risk of investing ahead of sales when the sales are uncertain and could kill the company. If he says no, he runs the risk of having no revenue at all as microscope sales dry up completely. Still, since photography is exploding around the world, it just might be a way to generate hard foreign currency through export sales, and thus navigate Germany's hyperinflation. Leitz gives Barnack the go-ahead, even though the earliest reactions to Barnack's prototypes are not that encouraging. Yet, in the midst of this utter chaos, I also want to point out that this post-war, or really interwar period, is when the German art school Bauhaus is created and flourishes. Now, I don't know of any direct connection between Bauhaus and the Leica development team, but under architect Walter Gropius, Bauhaus becomes the epicenter of modern art, architectural, and industrial design, which just so happens to be located less than 150 miles away from Wetzlar. My personal belief is that the Leica's design is heavily influenced by Bauhaus. I mean, just look at my 3A, a very close cousin of the 1. It's architectural. The complex, chamfered, rounded, and sculpted viewfinder and rangefinder housing are dramatically different from the Brownie, the Speed Graphic, or really just anything else out there. It is a form follows function design, a phrase coined by an architect, though in this case, he predated the Bauhaus movement, American Louis Sullivan. Those rounded ends are a function of the radius of the 35mm film roll contained within, the body and housing taking up as little volume as possible beyond what is absolutely necessary while still being aesthetically pleasing. Then again, Claudia pointed out to me that the 3A has elements of Art Deco in it too. She points to the pattern on the film advance, rewind, and shutter speed knobs, the details of the focus locking lever. And it has to be said, the integrated rangefinder housing I love in the 3A is absent in the Leica one, so that these deco elements take primacy over a housing that won't even arrive until the Leica 2. Though the one does, however, offer an optional add-on rangefinder, the technology more than any other with which the name Leica will be inextricably linked. Fascinating historical footnote. The Leica is not the first camera to use that one either. That honor instead goes to the number 3A autographic Kodak special camera of 1916. You see what I mean about not necessarily being first? Even the fonts of the engraving, the wordmark, are worthy of comment. The camera's name, Leica, as I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the concatenation of lights and camera. What is that font? It's beautiful, elegant, simple, precise. What font is used for the numbers and letters, which I've always loved? I mean, it looks a little bit like Helvetica, but that won't be created until 1957. Is it the Accidens Grotesque of 1898? Guys, if you know this kind of stuff, please weigh in down below. Let's pause once again to recap and assert that, running in reverse order this time, 1, iconic, at the time modern industrial design is part of the Leica's DNA. 2, precision focus is integral to that design. 3, the company has coded into its heritage the willingness to take large risks when it has to. 4, foreign sales and premium pricing are critical to its survival. And 5, the company is no stranger to navigating financial precipice. Over the next decade or so, the risk pays off. Leica becomes a celebrated runaway success. And with that, you can argue, we've just covered the original Leica DNA, what really, really makes a Leica a Leica. Except, of course we haven't. Not completely. Because DNA is only half the equation. It's the old nature versus nurture argument. How much of what makes a person unique is genetic? How much is subsequently shaped by the environment? Well, we already have a hint of that. But what's more important is that the most iconic of all Leicas, the M, won't be introduced for another 30 years, actually 1954. So yes, I'm anthropomorphizing a camera, but again, how the environment shapes Leica's subsequent designs, and how those designs and the environment shape and inspire extraordinary image making captured on Leicas is foundational to my understanding of and reactions to Leica and the SL in particular. Which is, I think, a reasonable segue into taking a break for now. So, in part 3, we'll wrap up what is a Leica anyway, then spend the rest of the series on the camera itself and the images I actually captured properly teed up. That's it. Thanks for sticking with me. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, join the conversation in the comments section below. You guys are just so sharp and so generous. Just wow. Share, create a playlist, consider supporting our work by using our no-cost-to-you affiliate links down below, or making a contribution directly via the PayPal link down below. As always, we thank you for it. For 3 Blind Men and an Elephant, I'm Hugh Brownstone. See you next time.
I gotta wait for better days. It's all starting now. It's not too late, we can be saved if we make the time. It's gonna be alright. Had a clue, now I got a feeling. Just gotta hold on tight. Tonight, tonight.